Right. Okay. So then what if you compare learning Mandarin to learning software engineering and computer science? Because you mentioned as you were taking computer science, it was really something you enjoyed. So I guess the computer science was when you were in university, there's some level of you're being assigned different things. You still have to do it for a grade. But in the case of learning software engineering, you actually liked it or you seem to have enjoyed it. So what was the process like, or how did you feel about learning Mandarin versus software engineering? Did you feel like very different between them? Did you get similar feelings? Did you have like the same spark? How did you feel about it looking at those two things and learning Mandarin, especially after you'd finished the software engineering degree?
Yeah, I think there were some similarities. If I felt like I could use the skills that I was learning, it was exciting. And so um, my degree was in computer science, and so there was a lot of that degree that I didn't think was particularly useful. Um, for example, one of the intro classes was theory of computation. And, I think now, many years later, I might find that interesting, but at the time, it was like, you know, figuring out hard math problems on what is ever going to be computable was not something that could help me build an app. It's not something that could help me solve a problem or really achieve anything that day. So that was not particularly interesting. Whereas the classes that were more software engineering focused of like build this thing, like build this app, here are the requirements, you'll be able to do this, connect to it on this web page or whatever. That was so much more interesting because you were building something, you were creating something, you were doing something that could potentially matter. um, with Chinese, it was similar in the sense that I felt like the more knowledge I accumulated, the more practiced I became, the more I would be able to actually communicate in Chinese. And that was an interesting prospect to me. I guess you could think of studying computer science is kind of like studying Latin, and studying software engineering would be like studying Chinese. Software engineering allows you to build apps. Learning Chinese lets
Mm-hmm.
you speak Chinese. Whereas, if you're studying the theory of computation, is kind of like learning Latin because you can certainly spend a long time doing it, but there's not many people you can actually speak to in Latin. It is not a language used anywhere uh, much around the world today. So, yeah, I think that's kind of maybe that's how I should think about it.
Interesting.